Welcome back, dear students, to this news lesson. Today, we are rounding up with primary storage. In the previous video, we introduced the lesson where we talked about the random access memory. We went further to look at the two different types of RAM, the SRAM and the DRAM. We saw the differences between them and in which case each of them is suitable to use. Also, we went through some calculations in order to determine the number of addressable units, the number of address lines, number of data lines, input output lines of a particular chip. Also, we saw how to determine the number of chip from with a particular memory capacity we can have in order to provide a certain memory capacity. Several examples were solved in order for you to understand, and also exercise were given and the solution will be provided this weekend. Today, we are going to look at the read-only memory, which is the ROM. The ROM is a kind of computer memory whose contents can only be read by the computer. Data found in ROM is written by the manufacturer and cannot be modified by the user. Take note. Why is it like that? Because it is crucial, when you talk of it is crucial, talking about the data found on the ROM is crucial to the computer system, and any changes that we make will stop the computer from booting up properly. That is why the ROM is made is read only and not read and write like the RAM. The BIOS, basic input output system, stored on ROM is a very limited sequence of instruction that checks that the core components of the computer system, that is the RAM, the fundamental input output devices like the keyboard and the mouse, and secondary storage are connected and responding correctly. Once done, the boot sequence loads the essential parts of the main operating system from secondary storage into RAM. There are four types of ROM. But before that, let us come up. What are we saying? We said the BIOS, which stands for basic input output system, which is stored on the ROM, is a very limited sequence of instruction that checks the core component of the computer system. And when we talk about the core component of the computer system, we're talking about the RAM, the fundamental input output devices, those input output devices without which you cannot use a computer, like the monitor, the keyboard, and the mouse. But when we talk of those fundamental input output devices, you are mainly talking about the monitor and the keyboard. The secondary storage devices like a hard disk, it ensures that they are connected and they are responding correctly. And this boot sequence is done on the ROM. Once it is done, that is once the checking has been done, the boot sequence loads the essential parts of the main operating system from secondary storage into the RAM. Now, let us look at the four types of ROM. We have the mask ROM, the MROM. This is a ROM type programmed with its data when the chip is fabricated. In the real sense, MROM is never programmed. The data is hard coded into the chip itself when the chip is manufactured. So this is a type of ROM where that is not programmed, since data that is to be used on that ROM, on that particular type of ROM, is hard coded on it. The next type of ROM is the programmable ROM, the PROM. But please take note, if you are being asked, let me say in the question, to give the full meaning of PROM, it is not programmable ROM, it is programmable read-only memory. PROM, so do not call it PROM, no, it is PROM, it is read as PROM. It's a type of ROM that can be written, that is programmed, once but not reprogrammed. This ROM type is often used when an electronic device has a relatively low production volume and the cost of writing the content during the manufacturing process is not cost effective. That is cheap. It's not cost effective. I think expensive. Yes, that's a PROM. So in contrast to the MROM, the PROM can be programmed but only once. And we are seeing that it is used when the electronic device has a relatively low production volume and the cost of writing the content during the manufacturing process is not cost effective. Erasable programmable read-only memory, the EPROM. This is a type of PROM that can be erased and reprogrammed. If the content of the ROM needs to be changed, the memory unit is removed from the system and UV light is used to erase the data. All of the contents are erased in a single operation. This is a specialist operation and needs special equipment and operator expertise. So what are we talking about here? EPROM is a type of PROM, meaning that what data on it can be programmed. But in contrast to a PROM where programming on it can be done only once, in an erasable programmable ROM, data can be erased and reprogrammed. That is, it can be written, it can be erased and reprogrammed as we want. And this is done using UV light and some special type of equipment. The last type of ROM is the electrically erasable programmable ROM, the EEPROM. This type of ROM allows individual bytes to be erased electronically and the device can be reprogrammed. EEPROM is typically used in smart cards and remote keyless systems. Some EEPROM devices have additional security features to protect the device from hackers who may wish to attempt to reprogram it. So now, what is the difference between the EEPROM and the EEPROM? In the EEPROM, erasing, that is, erasing the data is done using UV light and it is done in a single operation. And there are special equipment that are needed for that. Why on an EEPROM, individual bytes are erased, that is, they are not erased in a single operation. I would say individual bytes are erased and it is done electronically and the device can be reprogrammed. And they are typically used in smart cards and remote keyless system. When we talk of remote keyless system, remote means that what? They are found on a specific location, and keyless, they don't contain keys to manipulate. Now, let us look at the differences. Let us look at the differences between RAM and ROM. And it is based on some characteristics. When it comes to purpose, a RAM is used to store data and instruction that is being used during processing, while the ROM stores the boot up instructions set by the manufacturer. When it comes to volatility, we are going to look at this term. We shall be talking about the characteristics of storage media. A RAM is volatile, that is, data is lost without power, meaning that what? The data that is contained on the RAM is totally lost when the system is turned off, whereas that on the ROM remains after the power is switched off. So the RAM is volatile while the ROM is non-volatile. Read-write operations. The RAM on the RAM we can perform read and write operation, whereas on the ROM we can perform read operations only. The capacity of a RAM is usually several gigabytes, whereas that of a ROM is a few megabytes in size. These are some of the differences we have about the RAM and the ROM. You can also go by using their full meaning. RAM is random access memory and ROM is read-only memory. You can go also by the types. The types of RAM, we have the SRAM, static RAM, and the DRAM, dynamic RAM. We have the type of ROM, we have the mask ROM, we have the programmable ROM, we have the electrically erasable programmable ROM, and we have the erasable programmable ROM. Okay. Other types of primary storage that such as the cache memory and the registers were already explained, whereby the cache memory was explained under the factors affecting the processor performance in lesson 9, and the registers was explained under the processing unit in lesson 7. In case you did not watch the video, I will recommend you to go in the playlist of the chapter Computer Organization and Architecture and look at these different lessons in order to understand the cache memory in details. Also, dear students, it will be good if you could go to your computer teacher or a hardware repairer and ask him or her to help you by showing you the above component, that is the RAM, the ROM, and why not the registers or the above components, so you can identify them on a motherboard. Also, how to remove and place a RAM, because placing a RAM is very easy, but if not done well, can get the RAM broken and hence functionless. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next lesson where we shall be introducing the secondary storage. Do not forget to like, to subscribe, and to share, dear students. See you in the next video.